Welcome back. This lesson is part 2 of adding authentication to YelpCamp. We'll focus on configuring Passport first, and then we'll add the logic for the sign up or register routes and template. Let's get started here. So I have my app.js open, and I've already required everything. What we need to do now is configure Passport, and we have a few lines, so I'm going to add in a line here that's just Passport configuration, just to make it clear. The first thing that we'll do is set up express session. So app.use, then require express-session, and then we're going to execute that. And inside of that, when we run that require statement, we're going to pass in an object, and we'll give it a secret. And this can be anything we want. Last time I think I did Rusty is the best and cutest dog or something like that. This time let's do something similar. Again, this can be anything that we want, but I'll just do, once again, Rusty wins cutest dog. Although I have to say Rusty is getting a little bit chubby, and I don't feel confident that he would actually win cutest dog anymore. I only show people his older cute photos. He's a little sausage-like now. Okay, so we have the secret set up. Then we need to add in resave, and that should be false. And then save uninitialized, make sure we spelled this one right, false. And these are just two options that we have to add. And we'll save. Now let's continue on down and work on configuring Passport. So far, this has nothing to do with Passport just yet. We're going to do an app.use passport.initialize, and then another one, app.use passport.session, just like that. Then we're going to do a passport.use, and this is where we give it the local strategy that we imported here. So we're going to run new local strategy, and then inside of that, we're going to give it a method, user.authenticate. And user.authenticate is not one that we wrote. It's one that comes with Passport local mongoose. If we didn't have this package, we would have to write that method ourselves. Then we have two more methods, passport.serializeUser, and that's going to be using user.serializeUser, which is another one that comes for free with that Passport local mongoose. And then we need deserializeUser, and it's the same name over here, deserializeUser, user.deserializeUser. Okay, so that's all the configuration we need to do. Before we move on to the routes for register, let's test that out, just see if everything runs okay. And what do you know, I spelled save uninitialized wrong again, just like I did in the last video, and I even went out of my way to try and avoid that. Let's just copy this in and paste it here. Hopefully you caught that before me. Let's save again and restart. Now we don't get any errors or any warnings, and we're good to go. Okay, so that's all the setup we have to do. Now we have to go through and add the routes in our templates. And we'll start with register. So I'm going to go down to the very bottom. And down here, below all of our comment routes and our campground routes, I'm going to add in our auth routes. So we'll make a little note here. And very soon, I keep saying this, but very soon we'll be splitting all the routes into separate files because it's getting a little bit difficult to manage with all this code in here. It's a lot of code. Okay, so our first route is going to show the register form. And that's just app.get/register. And then we need to call back here, request response. And then in here, res.render register, which doesn't exist yet. So now let's go create that. So touch views/register.ejs, and then let's open that file. And we'll add in our simple h1 sign up. And let's make sure we see that when we start the server and we go to that route/register. And we get the sign up h1. Now let's add in the form. So we're going to have a form tag. That form is going to go to /register, doesn't exist yet, and method will be post. We need two inputs. First one, type equals text, name is equal to username, and placeholder is equal to username as well. Then we need another input type, and this one is password. And then we want name to be password, and then a placeholder here can also be password. Alrighty, one more item, which is the button to submit it, and we'll just say sign up. Save, let's refresh. Here's our form. So right now, if we submit the form, it's going to send a post request /register. We don't have a route to handle that. Let's go and add that route. So this route will handle sign up logic. And inside of that, we're going to have an app.post to /register, our callback. And let's start with a simple res.send signing you up. And just make sure we see that when we submit the form. So we need to restart the server when we add a new route in. Now let's go back to the form, refresh, fill it out, hit sign up, and we get signing you up. Okay, so the route is now set up. Now let's actually add in all of the important logic. We need to use that user.register that's provided by the Passport local mongoose package. So user.register, and we pass in a new user that has a username assigned, and username should be request.body.username, like that. And then afterwards, we pass in the password as a second argument to user.register. So what we can actually do is make this into a separate variable to clean it up a little bit, and we'll call it var new user equals new user that has a username. And then we're going to register with new user, comma, request.body.password. And that's the password from the form. This is the username from the form, which should be reviewed by now, hopefully. And then we're passing in this new user that only has a username assigned. And register is going to handle all of the logic of taking that password. And then rather than storing the password, it actually stores that crazy hash. So let's make sure that it works. So user.register, and then we'll add in a callback, and this will have error, and then user, and that user will be the newly created user if it worked. So let's start with an if error. We'll do a console.log error, but we also want to handle it, and we'll do a res.render register, and we'll do a return here. And that's just a nice way to short circuit and get out of this entire callback if we return. And then down here, we run passport.authenticate with the local strategy. And we're going to call that with the request and the response, and then a callback function that it will handle once it authenticates. And what we want to do is redirect, and let's redirect to /campgrounds for now. So once the user has signed up, then we're going to log them in, authenticate them, and then we're going to redirect them to /campgrounds. And if we don't, and if there's a problem signing the user up, then we're going to console.log the error, and then we're going to render the form again. So let's give that a shot. Start the server up. If we go to register and fill it out, and then we hit submit and we make it to /campgrounds, that means that things went well for us. Let's refresh. I'll sign up here with Severus, and password will be password again. Sign up, and it takes us to /campgrounds. Excellent. So we can trust that that worked, but we could also open up Mongo and connect to our database, show DBs, and we're using YelpCamp v6. So I'm going to use YelpCamp v6, and then I'm going to do a db.users.find, and we should see a single user in here, this gigantic looking thing. If we see that, it means that it worked. So we have our username that we added ourselves when we did user.new here, or new user. And then all of this stuff was added from this user.register. Okay, great. So we have that working. I'll Control C out of here, and we can start the server up again. And let's see what happens if I go back to the form and I try and register as Severus again. It takes me back to the form. Every time I do that with the same username, it's taking me back to the form, and we're getting a message here that says a user with a given username is already registered. So we get that for free by using Passport Local Mongoose. We automatically get that message. It's great. We can use it in our view in a later video, and we will, because right now we're not explaining to the user the problem, which is always really frustrating if you're a user and you don't know what's going wrong, but you know that something's not working. But for now, all that we care about is that it works. So we have these two render statements, or a res.render and a res.redirect, and we're getting either one, depending on if we're successfully signing up or if we're causing an error, in this case by signing up with the username that's already registered. Great. So we did everything I want to do in this video. In the next one, we're going to handle the login logic and routes.